Chinese officials are reacting to reports that China interfered in the last Canadian federal election. The Globe and Mail says the story is based on secret documents from CSIS, the Canadian Security Intelligence Service.
Behind me is the Peace Tower and Centre Block on the Parliamentary Precinct. In Canada, we are blessed to live in a country where any citizen and non-citizen can walk up to our parliamentary buildings and enjoy democracy in Canada. Underpinning all of our institutions is a sense of trust by Canadians that our institutions work on their behalf. It's about integrity, free and fair elections. Any threat to these institutions by a Canadian or non-Canadian actor is a threat against the fundamental principles which make Canada what it is. This is most visibly displayed, of course, during our general elections, when every Canadian citizen gets to cast a paper ballot in support of who they believe should be running our country. In the last federal election, there were rumors about foreign interference taking place, impacting the way that Canadians would or would not cast their vote in the democratic process. In recent weeks, this has come to light, and that's what I'm here to talk to you about today.
The Globe and Mail says the story is based on secret documents from CSIS, the Canadian Security Intelligence Service. The newspaper says they show that China employed a sophisticated strategy to influence the vote. The document suggests that China had two clear goals: to ensure a minority Liberal government was elected and to defeat certain Conservative candidates.
Over the last number of weeks, there have been stories leaked to newspapers in Canada outlining foreign actors had interfered in the last federal election. But guess what? The government already knew about it. In fact, there was a 2020 report that outlined that foreign states were conducting sophisticated and pervasive foreign interference activities against Canada. And the report outlined that those activities pose a significant risk to our national security, principally by undermining Canada's fundamental institutions and eroding the rights and freedoms of Canadians. Canada's ability to address foreign interference is limited by the absence of a holistic approach or a whole-of-government approach that would take this problem seriously, like we do with cybersecurity or other threats to national security. The report noted that there is no public foreign interference strategy similar to those developed for pervasive activities like terrorism. The committee that wrote to the Prime Minister about these issues is a nonpartisan committee. It's composed of Liberals, Conservatives, and Senators who all called out unanimously that the Government of Canada needed to put its foot down and start taking serious action to combat interference in our public institutions. The problem is the Prime Minister didn't listen, and the consequences could not be greater. So what do we have here? We have a nonpartisan parliamentary committee that reports directly to the Prime Minister that outlined in no uncertain terms that foreign states like China and Russia were purposely trying to interfere in the domestic affairs of Canada to serve their own interests. It doesn't get much worse than that. The Prime Minister knew and took no action to combat the real and serious threats that members of Parliament from all political parties outlined in no uncertain terms. We even have a situation in the last couple of weeks that a member of Parliament, Michael Chong, and his family was targeted when he, like I did, called out the Beijing regime for their genocide against Uyghur Muslims. Justin Trudeau and his entire Liberal cabinet abstained from voting on that critical vote. So hold on. Why is this important? Because it goes back to exactly what was stated in that report, that the actions of a foreign government are eroding the rights of Canadians and building a sense of mistrust in Canadian institutions. Nothing is more sacred than upholding the democratic principles that all members of Parliament are elected under. In the last 2 weeks, I've spoken twice to the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians' 2019 annual report, which outlined the pervasive threats that are threatening our democracy. And guess what? The Liberals had a chance to right some of their wrongs and do good for Canada. In fact, the Conservative Party of Canada put forward a motion outlining a number of things that we could do right now to take action against the foreign interference caused by the Beijing regime. We called for the establishment of a foreign registry as a top priority, similar to what they have in the United States and Australia. We called to establish a national public inquiry on the matter of foreign interference in our elections so we could finally get to the bottom of all of the bad things that have happened. We called for them to close down the People's Republic of China run police stations in our country. This is serious stuff, and we need to take action right now to protect our public institutions. This is about integrity and faith in our institutions and the rights of every single Canadian citizen who votes in a federal election. And Justin Trudeau knew, and he chose not to do anything about it. Our Prime Minister has stated very clearly that he respects and admires the basic dictatorship of China.
There's a level of admiration I actually have for China because their basic dictatorship is allowing them to actually turn their economy around on a dime.
But when it came to taking action on a nonpartisan parliamentary committee that outlined to him the serious threats that our country was facing as it relates to our public institutions, he did nothing about it. Talk about irresponsibility, talk about negligence. I started off this video talking about integrity. Integrity in our institutions. That's a fundamental responsibility of the Government of Canada. But I don't believe our Prime Minister is taking that seriously enough. He had this report on his desk in 2020, and he did nothing about it. That is a lack of integrity.
We take for granted that whether or not we agree with whoever's sitting in the Prime Minister's office, that they will have integrity and they will demonstrate leadership and honesty towards the Canadian people. It's become very clear that Mr. Harper has shredded the integrity of that office.
Thanks for watching.